So, Green Sundays are free public programs and discussions on topics of the day, sponsored by the Green Party of Alameda County, and held on the second Sunday of each month at 5 p.m. After our presentation today, our panel discussion, followed by the regular discussion Q&A, we will have our monthly business meeting of the County Council of the Green Party at 7 p.m. And all of this is open to the general public, anyone who is interested. So, Harvey Sluggo Wasserman wrote Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth.
There you go.
And he co-wrote with Norman Solomon, Bob Alvarez, and Eleanor Waters, Killing Our Own, The Disaster of America's Experience with Atomic Radiation. And his Green Grassroots Election Protection website is grassrootsep.org. That is by Zoom on most Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I'm delighted that Harvey is able to join us today. I've heard him speak at the Berkeley Fellowship of UUs, and I found him to be a very exciting, dynamic speaker. Also delighted that Linda Seeley has joined us. She is the Vice President and spokesperson for San Luis Obispo Mothers for Peace, the longtime legal intervener in all matters relating to safety at the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in San Luis Obispo. Her focus is on helping to create a safer world for the future generations. Now, Harvey is going to introduce Myla Reson, but first I want to tell you the topic of our Green Sunday today, getting to Solartopia while studying Diablo Canyon. Sorry that Carl Grossman could not join us, but very glad to have Myla Reson. Would you like to introduce her, please, Harvey?
Myla Reson is my co-host at the California Solartopia show at KPFK Pacifica since 2017. And she's a long-time, very knowledgeable, very hardworking anti-nuclear activist with a deep background here in California and also in New Mexico, where she fought the WIP Waste Isolation Pilot Project, among many other things. So Myla is a terrific presenter and has a very, very deep knowledge. And the focus of our talk, since we're all Californians here, I live in Los Angeles, as does Myla, and you heard that Linda Seeley lives in San Luis Obispo. In case you're, or in the, around near San Luis Obispo, in case you're curious about my background, that is an outdoor classroom at a university that I taught at for 14 years in Central Ohio. As you can see, my students have taken on a cloak of invisibility, but we had many great classes there, mostly focusing, because it gets cold in Columbus, we mostly focused at that outdoor classroom on the Bill of Rights, which is what I started my classes with, and which, of course, is on the verge of departing. And that'll be the discussion that we'll have tomorrow. Every Monday, Myla and I and a few others convene what's called the Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call, or GREEP. And usually in the first hour, we focus on election protection issues, and of which, of course, there are many. And the call started in April of 2020 with the approach to the 2020 election. And then the second hour, we usually do energy issues with a lot of talk about Diablo Canyon. This call, we want to focus on Diablo Canyon as much as possible. It is the number one threat to life, human life, in the state of California, and is actually the single nuclear power plant. There are two reactors, as I'm sure most of you know, that is directly upwind of most of North America. or at least most of the United States. And it has been many of our number one um, projects to shut it. For in Linda's case, 50 years. I've had some other, I'll say that again, 50 years. I've had some other
Wow.
reactors intervene in my agenda. I did do three lovely nights in the San Luis Obispo County Jail, which I highly recommend, by the way, in the summer of 1984. And as many of you know, we had an agreement in 2018 to shut the Diablo Canyon and phase in renewable energy. It was signed by Gavin Newsom, who was then lieutenant governor, and then he basically stabbed us away, and now he's the big heroic anti-Trump. But there are some things that we need to discuss about that. So that's a brief preview of what I want to talk about and what really, among other things, attracted me to this call is that everyone here is a Californian. We have had the shutdown of Diablo Canyon within our grasp, but the stakes are incredibly high, and we'll discuss that as we go along. Phoebe, do you want to let um, Linda and Myla make opening remarks, and then we'll come back?
Yes, that yes, that sounds good to hear from Linda and Mara now. Thank you.
So Linda Seeley, who I know as Seeley, and who actually is, I spent many of my days in Columbus, Ohio, and she's from Cleveland. So there you go. But I think half the people in California actually came from Ohio, but that may be an exaggeration. But Linda is a truly great activist, and she is the vice president of the San Luis Obispo Mothers for Peace, which is a truly great organization and dates back 50 years. So even though Linda, you're just turned 26, we can you give us the basics of what's happening at Diablo, and then Myra will follow up.
Okay. Thanks, Harvey. Thanks, Phoebe. I'm glad to be here. I let's see. I think I'll probably most of you haven't even heard of San Luis Obispo Mothers for Peace, my guess. So I'll tell you a little bit about us. We started in 1967, actually, 58 years ago, but we were an anti-war group at that time. And then in 73, when we heard about PG&E starting to dig big, deep holes out on the coastline at near Avila Beach, we decided to check it out and found out that they were they're planning to build a nuclear plant there. And we thought that didn't sound like a very good idea, even though we didn't know a thing about nuclear power. I hadn't moved here yet. I was still back in the Midwest at that point. I moved here in 82. But my sister compatriots, who some are still in Mothers for Peace, they decided that they were going to they applied, there was a notice in the San Luis Obispo Tribune that if you wanted to become a legal intervener in this case of where they were trying to build a nuclear plant, you could apply. So one of the members of Mothers for Peace applied. She won it. She won the status of legal intervener, and she didn't even know what it was. And we've been doing it ever since. We have a terrific lawyer from Washington, D.C. named Diane Curran, who has been with us for around, now I'd say about 25 years or so. And she does all of our legal work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And as you probably know, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is the commission that is.
Well, you froze on us there.
Oh, I'm going to
There you
turn
go.
off I turned off my video. The NRC is supposed to be protecting us from around safety issues in all nuclear things. But they were a weak organization to begin with. They've been controlled by the industry, by the nuclear industry, because it's kind of a what do you call that? Well, you go in one door and come out the other, dressed in a different hat. Um, these people just transfer from the industry to the NRC and back and forth and back and forth. But now, since Trump was inaugurated this second term, he has gutted whatever regulatory backbone the NRC had, fired the chair. Another one of the members resigned, and he is committed to not only building lots of new nuclear plants, but reviving dead nuclear plants and keeping online all of the old nuke plants like Diablo Canyon to as long as possible. So and so Diane Curran, our attorney in DC, when we have legal challenges about safety issues at Diablo Canyon, she files those cases. We also have an attorney in, she's in Ojai. Her name is Sabrina Venskas, and she does all of our work at the California Public Utilities Commission. The CPUC is the agency in California that allows PG&E to suck us dry financially to keep Diablo Canyon running. To the tune of this year, 2025, an additional $723 million out of taxpayer and ratepayers' pocketbooks so that they can generate toxic waste on a coastline that has 13 earthquake faults and is piled high with nuclear waste already. And as most of you know, Diablo Canyon was supposed to shut down this year. The last day of operation of Diablo was supposed to be August 26th, 2025 for Unit 2. And that day came and went because back in 2022, Gavin Newsom, and we don't know why, nobody's ever revealed exactly why, but we feel like it was probably under the persuasion of PG&E, decided it was very important to keep Diablo Canyon online after its license expired. And so he wrote legislation that he gave to the California Senate. The Senate, this was a gut and amend bill where at the end of a legislative system where they take an old bill that has already been that already has life in it because it was too late to write a new bill. They gutted that bill, took out all the contents of it, replaced the contents of it with a bill called SB 846 to keep Diablo Canyon online for an additional 5 years after the license expired. This was done without any safety checks. It was done without any financial analysis, and it was done without assessing the need for Diablo Canyon to meet our energy goals, our clean energy goals in California. It was the last night of the last session of 2022, and it was passed after midnight. And there were only like 4 legislators who voted against it. 3 of them were Republicans. That is what's keeping Diablo Canyon open for an additional 5 years beyond its license expiration. So what Mothers for Peace has decided to do as the most effective means of getting it shut down is to work with our state legislature. And because there are a lot of the legislators who do not want Diablo there. They uh, what do you call it, failed under pressure to stand up for the people of California. And the reason that Gavin Newsom said he wanted to keep it online was because we might have a brownout for 10 minutes in September of some year between 5 and 9 p.m. And God forbid that anything like that would happen. They caved, right, Myla? So now we're stuck with this abomination on our coastline. And there's over 6 million pounds of highly radioactive nuclear waste there. The spent fuel pools where they put the hot radioactive waste are so jam-packed that you would not believe it. They've been, as they say, re-racked, meaning condensed. It's like you go in, you have your freezer, and you get a whole bunch of stuff that you need to put in your freezer, and you take everything out and you reconfigure it so a bunch more will fit into it. That's what they've done with the spent fuel pools at Diablo Canyon. And anyway, so what we're doing is we want to have a hearing, a full hearing, jointly with the Assembly and the Senate to review, number one, do we need the power from Diablo Canyon? Does California need it? Number two, how much is it costing us for real to keep this thing online? And number three, have the safety concerns been addressed, such as the earthquake fault, that one of the earthquake faults that runs directly under the power plant and is what is called a vertical thrust fault, meaning if there were an earthquake, instead of the earth going sideways, one part goes up. And when one part thrusts up under a building, it causes way more damage than if it goes sideways. This one particular fault that is right under the plant has not been analyzed, believe it or not. And so we're like, come on, analyze that fault. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that to us. You can't do that to the public. You can't do that to the future generations. That is immoral, illegal, and you ought to go to jail if you're not if you're supporting keeping that thing open. And to boot, PG&E has applied for a license to operate for 20 additional years beyond 2025, so till 2045. And with all of the solar that's coming on board, all of the battery backup storage, the possibility of wind, the geothermal, it's absolutely patently obvious that we do not need 1 watt of power from Diablo Canyon. And yet it's being thrust upon us for a political reason. It has nothing to do with need or safety or economy. So that's all I'll say right now. Sorry to be so long-winded, but
No, you're great. You're great. And let me just say that we would entertain the likelihood that all of you know a fair amount about Diablo Canyon. This is not meant to be an informational session. We need to figure out how to shut these 2 reactors. Gavin Newsom stabbed us in the back. There was a monumental 2-year effort to craft a plan to phase out Diablo Canyon and phase in renewable energy. It was drafted between 2016 and 2018. It was signed in 2018 and put into law It was basically crafted under the aegis of Jerry Brown, but Newsom was lieutenant governor. He signed it. And then out of the blue in 2022, he killed the deal. And Diablo Canyon was supposed to have been shut in the last couple of months, the second reactor, and it wasn't. And here Newsom is running around the state, country, portraying himself as the anti-Trump, when in fact he has waged a serious war in this state against solar energy and keeping Diablo Canyon open when it is the primary reason that California has the highest electric rates in the continental US is because of Diablo Canyon and because of the war against solar. So we're not here just to talk about that. We're here to win. We need to shut these reactors as soon as possible, and we need to come out of this meeting with a strategy and commitments as to how to do it. So Myla Reson is going to take it from there. Myla, please.
Thank you, Harvey, and thank you, Linda. That, it's a lot to take in. And I think that one of the things that we really need to bear in mind is that Californians and the world has been extremely lucky because, as Linda Seeley said, there is a vertical thrust fault directly below the plant that has not been analyzed, but it is there. It has been mapped. What needs to be done is they need to look at the implications, but we know what the implications are. The plant sits on a nest of earthquake faults. The plant is embrittled. The reactors are embrittled. We could be facing a Fukushima on the California coast. There's no getting around it. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And so it could happen tomorrow. It could happen tonight. It could happen in a few years. We don't know. And that's why we have to work right now to make sure that the plant is shut. As Linda said, there was a rationale that was presented to the public by Newsom that, or I don't know if it was actually given to the public, but what we were hearing was he was saying that the rationale for abrogating the agreement to shut Diablo was that we needed the plant to prevent blackouts and brownouts. That's just not the case. We have the battery technology. We have all of the solar, wind, battery technology to keep the lights on in California. We don't need Diablo. In fact, Diablo is impeding more renewables coming online. Gavin Newsom has destroyed the rooftop solar industry in California. And I think that what Seeley said was that one of the steps that everybody here can take is to help us get the legislators to convene hearings about Diablo. And there has to be a real sense of urgency about it. I know Betty Yee, who is one of the Democratic candidates for the governor, has said that when she becomes governor, she'll shut Diablo. We may not have the luxury of waiting until somebody becomes governor who is pledging to shut Diablo. We have to act now before it's too late. We just don't know. We're skating on thin ice here, as it were. We're on borrowed time is another way you can put it. But we have to act with real urgency. And just one other thing that I'd like to say, I spoke to the aides of a number of California state legislators when this agreement to shut the plant was being abrogated. And what I was told by those aides was that Gavin Newsom was threatening the environmentally conscious members of the state legislature that if they failed to vote in favor of abrogating the agreement to shut Diablo, that he would ruin their careers. He was threatening that he would ruin their careers and that he would veto all of their environmental legislation. So he's a real tough guy. He's he's a mini Trump, and we need to stand up against him. So that's all for now. Let's figure out how we're going to approach this. And Seeley, perhaps you can say a little bit more about what we are asking legislators to do.
Yeah, thanks, Myla. We want the Senate Energy Committee to spearhead this. And I don't know in the like Alameda County Bay Area, who are your state senators up in that neck of the woods? Who are they in the Bay Area?
Anybody want to jump in with that? We know you have John Wiener.
You mean
Who do you have in your delegation to the state legislature who might help us shut these two reactors?
what about Henry Stern? Is he from the Bay Area?
No, he's down here in Southern California.
Okay. How about Aisha Wahab? No?
Scott Wiener. We have Jesse Arreguin, who used to be the mayor of Berkeley and was a progressive, but,
he's
betrayed us and fell into the pockets of the developers. And yeah, he was newly elected to the state Senate.
well, he is on the Senate what do you call it? Energy Committee. So I don't, if he betrayed you, is he good for anything?
Maybe it's worth asking. I
Uh-huh.
mean, especially those of us who know him. Sure.
If you could contact him and tell him that the Senate and that the Energy Committee needs to have a full hearing. Actually, it should be a joint hearing with the Assembly, with their Energy Committee, to look at Diablo Canyon with an impassionate eye and check and get the demand that the California Energy Commission give some current data, which they have. It's amazing how much under the thumb of what's his name, Gavin Newsom, they are. The well, he appoints them, the Energy Commission. So they make these reports every year. They're mandated under the SB 846, the law about Diablo Canyon. There are off ramps built into that law. And one of them is if we have sufficient power in showing that we do not need Diablo Canyon. That's an off ramp. The legislators are the ones who are sorry about that, in control of Diablo Canyon. And so if we don't need the power, that's an off ramp. They can vote and say, okay, we found out that we don't need the power from Diablo. It's gone today, tomorrow, the next day. Another thing is it fiscally sound for us to be supporting it? And the California Public Utilities Commission, Mothers for Peace's case in that specifically addressed the wisdom of keeping it open. If it was of benefit to the people of California, and the ALJ, the judge in the case, threw out our expert testimony on that. And we have now filed a case with the California Court of Appeals because the CPUC judge violated his own regulations in throwing out our testimony. So now we're involved at the Court of Appeals, and we have a really great chance there of getting our testimony admitted. And it shows that it's not, it makes no sense to have this behemoth online sucking up our tax dollars and our ratepayer dollars. And then another thing is that we are California Public Utilities Commission has a committee that is inside the PUC, and it's called the IPRP, the Independent Peer Review Panel, which is made up of expert earthquake scientists. I can't remember what they're called. Geophysicists.
Seismologists.
Seismologists, right. And these seismologists are from various agencies within the state of California. And they were mandated to produce a report that was due like 2 years ago, I think. And they still have not produced a report about the seismology at Diablo Canyon. And so we're still waiting on that. So there are many things that our state legislature ought to be doing in, hound dogging PG&E over Diablo Canyon. But I think a lot of it is because PG&E gives a lot of money to these politicians. And so, like, if they've given over the years, they've given over $15 million to Gavin Newsom. So I don't know how much they've given to these individual legislators from California, but I know they're very, very generous, let's put it that way, with political contributions.
Yeah, with our money.
With our money, right.
So the bottom line here, Linda, and Myla and all of you, is that there's no economic case that can be made to continue operating Diablo Canyon. Diablo Canyon produces baseload power, which means when it's operating, it puts power into the grid 24/7. But demand fluctuates in California. And there are times of day when the power from Diablo, and they like to say we need baseload power, which is a complete, it's an obsolete statement. May have been true at some point. But the bottom line is that there are 2 million solar rooftops in California. We have a booming solar industry. Linda, I interrupted you. You all right with that?
Good, yeah.
We had a booming solar industry. And not only has Newsom kept Diablo Canyon open at huge expense to the ratepayers, but he's also assaulted the solar industry in California, costing it tens of thousands of jobs. It's a real Trump move. And he signed this agreement. The agreement that was reached in 2018 was a major step forward, a template for phasing out nuclear power everywhere and phasing in renewable energy. The only thing that's changed since 2018 is that solar has gotten cheaper, and especially battery technology has vastly advanced to the point that we absolutely, in no way, shape, or form, face any danger from a blackout if we make the transformation that was agreed to in 2018. And in fact, if God forbid something happens at Diablo Canyon, that's where the blackout will come, and a radioactive cloud from Diablo Canyon would blow straight into Los Angeles and then around the state and then across the country. And we've had Fukushima, we've had Chernobyl, we've had 3 Mile Island, Santa Susana, Windscale, you name it. We have had a solid dozen very serious nuclear accidents, any one of which could be replicated at Diablo Canyon. So we want these reactors shut. Every number that you can run on the economics of Diablo Canyon says to shut it down. If I was a pure capitalist and all I was interested in, I forget the environment, forget the meltdowns. This is not about nuclear power. This is about Diablo Canyon. And so we have the advantage of being able to argue that going with the plan from 2018 would have saved California billions of dollars and alleviated any risk from a disaster at Diablo and a subsequent blackout. So, Myla, go ahead.
Well, I'd really like to hear from the Alameda Green Party people who are here on this Zoom, and I'm wondering if you have any questions and whether you've had it, whether you require more information, whether any of you are prepared in any way to join the fight to shut these reactors. Is that appropriate for me to ask for questions or comments at this point?
Absolutely, we can open it up, and I can help take stack if you like. See, Pamela has a actual hand waving there. Go ahead, unmute Pamela. Pamela, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, back in the days of the 70s, I knew someone who worked for Diablo Canyon, and she did the evacuations, which I always thought was kind of weird because I don't know how you'd ever be able to evacuate people if that went off, I don't know, whatever you call it. And when we were voting, the big thing that made me definitely not want to keep it producing is because I was told that the parts of the actual the Diablo Canyon thing was not at all old, and it was so old that that would be enough to cause a big problem, if you want to put it that way. But the idea was that the whole building and the whole inners were just so old that this was a very bad move. That's all I care to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. And you're absolutely right. Not only is it very old, but there's something called embrittlement, which means it's something like, the way it sounds, that the reactor vessels, when they are hot and running, then they have a certain amount of plasticity. But when they are cooled, all of the micro fractures that occur over the lifetime of splitting atoms create a vulnerability, so that if there's an instance where there's an emergency and they have to cool the reactors rapidly, there's a likelihood that the reactors will break apart and they'll shatter like glass, and that could be, as we have been warming, a catastrophe that would be like because of that embrittlement. So yes, it's the unit 1, which was supposed to be shut in 2024. It's probably either the most embrittled reactor in the United States or the second most, and I think Seeley can let us know, is it the most embrittled or the second most embrittled, and it hasn't been tested as it's supposed to be for embrittlement, it's many years overdue. Go ahead, Seeley.
Yeah, we don't know. We think the most embrittled one is Palisades in Michigan, which was shut down. But now it's one of what we call a zombie reactor. They're trying to bring it back to life. And that would be like one of the worst mistakes they could possibly make. But the Unit 1 reactor at Diablo Canyon was manufactured in 1967, which was prior to the time when they discovered that the amount of nickel that they added into the mix of the metals that they fabricated these vessels out of, that they had been putting too much nickel into these vessels, and that caused them to become embrittled more rapidly. And so we Mothers for Peace we did extensive research. We had one of truly the world's greatest experts on metal embrittlement, whom we retained, and he wrote his report was terrifying, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission chose to ignore this report. So we're up against an outlaw of a regulator. And that's why we really, really, really need to get this plant shut down, because there is no backup. There's no care about safety. The hubris of the nuclear industry is beyond belief. I don't know where it comes from or why or how. You would think that they would want to abide by the precautionary principle, but they don't. They just don't. And they're in the pocket of the nuclear industry, and the nuclear industry is terrifying. So, and our state legislators don't seem to be to care about it that much either. And they're like, well, look, it's been there for 40 years. It hasn't melted down yet. Yeah, right.
Yes, I haven't melted either.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this is a real David and Goliath situation for sure. But the people are the only ones who can make this change. And it is only pressure from the electorate that will move these legislators to actually do something about this. And God knows Mothers for Peace has been hounding them, but we need to amplify the voices and let them know that it's not just the crazy Mothers for Peace who want to shut down Diablo. It's the people of California who know we don't need it, don't want it, and we just want to contain the waste, and which we will have to store on our cliffside for God knows how long, by the way. The more they make, the more we have to store. And it is radioactive. The half-life of plutonium is 24,000 years.
I might jump in, Seeley. Unnecessary. You've said that before, but I want to underscore that the technology that we need to produce electricity sustainably with wind, solar, battery technology. We don't need nuclear power. We don't need nuclear waste. Just as that wonderful song that you played, Justin, as we were entering the Zoom. That's my theme song. I love it. Please take this nuclear power away. And I'm just wondering, will your organization take this on as an issue and actually engage in some kind of active campaigning to help us to shut Diablo? That's a question.
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, hi. So this is Phoebe. Um, okay, we have an email list of over 3,000 people, and I'm going to ask that you make it very easy for us and easy for our subscribers to take action by having an alert that makes 3 points. Number one, that we don't need it, that we have sufficient power without Diablo Canyon. Number two, that it's fiscally irresponsible, a total waste of money. And number three, that it's extremely dangerous. And then each of those points needs to be hyperlinked to or have footnotes or something, with the sources backing up those facts. And then we need to tell our subscribers exactly who to lobby about it and how, and give them talking points and make it easy for them by giving them the contact information of the legislators that we want them to contact. And I think that there would be no opposition at all to us doing that. It's just that if you leave it to me, I might not get to it. I've got a full plate, and we all do. So make it easy for us. And then I'm going to suggest that we take it to the California Greens. We have a General Assembly coming up, and I hope that Greg can advise us about what we might do, propose something at the General Assembly for the California Greens to get Greens statewide not only lobbying, but we probably need to be protesting too, don't we? Do we need to be engaging in civil disobedience, or what's it going to take?
Well, one thing, first of all, I think it's a great offer, Phoebe, and that you should be in regular touch with Linda Seeley.
Yes,
They're
please.
the ones who are coordinating the action in the state. And I want to say one thing. It's not only that Diablo Canyon is unnecessary. Given the change, the massive advances in solar and batteries, along with geothermal, Diablo Canyon is actually, even without accidents, even without waste, Diablo Canyon is an economic liability because demand, especially in California, fluctuates within the day, up and down. It's low in the afternoon, it's high between 5 and 9, and then it goes back down. Whereas the nuclear plant, which is the most expensive power being generated in the state, never stops. So it's at the same level when demand is bottom as it is when demand is top. And as a result, it blocks the cheaper renewable energy off the grid. And California winds up exporting electricity from Diablo Canyon at a huge loss. So you have people who have done the economic analysis, Mark Jacobson, Freeling. There are a few people turn, they know the numbers here. And we weren't able to make this argument a few years ago, but it's very clear now. California, virtually every day, some part of the day, we are getting 100% of our electricity from solar, which is most powerfully in the Central Valley. From the midday to the early afternoon, the Central Valley alone produces more solar power than the state uses. But then you've got this ridiculous nuclear plant, which is also at base load, blocking solar power, which is way, way cheaper off the grid. And at the same time, and this again is in the last few years, battery technology has advanced so far that the danger of a blackout in California now, unless the nuclear plant blows up, by the way, God forbid, but the chances of a blackout because of battery backup now are virtually nil. And the only thing that's threatening a blackout in California is Diablo Canyon. So
Yeah.
these arguments are really all the capitalist arguments are on our side now. Even if Diablo Canyon was powered by squirrels, I mean, it would still be an economic detriment. So we need to bang that argument as hard as we possibly can. When Newsom forsook the deal from 2018, which is a terrible tragedy, that deal, I don't know if you remember Phoebe and the rest of you, but this was a 2-year process. It involved all the state regulatory commissions, all the environmental commissions, the coastal commission, all that, the unions, for God's sakes, the local utility, the local governments, all the environmental groups except the mothers, which wanted to shut the Diablo immediately. Um, Everybody, all potential stakeholders, even the company, PG&E itself agreed to shut Diablo. We don't know exactly why Newsom jumped in to stab us in the back. The only logical thing is that PG&E slipped him money for his presidential campaign. It's the only thing that makes any sense because none of the rest of it, in any financial way, shape, or form, and this is not about nuclear power. This is about this specific plant and the terrible engineering shape it's in because of embrittlement, and it is 42 years old. It started operating in the 80s. It is one of all the reactors in the U.S. now, except one or two, are over 40 years old. So this thing is just a complete jalopy. One other thing, the plant is very much in violation of the Clean Water Acts, both state and federal. And one of the reasons that PG&E agreed to shut Diablo is that they were technically, and still are, obliged to build cooling towers at the site because this one, as it is, they take water directly out of the ocean and pour it directly back in after it's subjected to 300 degrees centigrade heat. That pouring of the hot water back into the ocean is in violation of state and federal Clean Water Acts. And in 2018, they were looking at the legal obligation to build cooling towers, which would have cost them $2 billion. So, in deference to a waiver that was given as part of that deal, PG&E was not required to build the cooling towers on the presumption that they were going to close in 24 and 25. And then they didn't. And so this whole thing has become a bait and switch, where the reactors have now been operating for 7 years in direct violation of the Clean Water Acts by virtue of having signed on to this agreement, which they've now shredded. It's infuriating, but that's the reality. Myla?
Right. It is infuriating, and the fact that the consequence of the violation for many years now of of the Clean Water Act is that the outflow of hot water is decimating the marine environment. It's entraining, I think, trillions of sea creatures, and it's really horrific. But I just want to personally thank your organization for having us here to talk about the importance of shutting Diablo. I want to throw into the mix a story that you may or may not have heard about that is related to nuclear power, but not directly related to Diablo, and that is the fact that back in August, the the FDA, the Federal Drug Food and Drug Administration issued a recall of radioactive shrimp that was coming from Indonesia. It was found to be contaminated with cesium-137, which is a byproduct of nuclear fission. In my opinion, it most likely is coming from the enormous amounts of radioactive water that are being dumped by the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, off of Fukushima. But there's an investigation now to figure out exactly where why that shrimp is contaminated with cesium-137. Cesium-137 is chemically analogous to potassium. So when someone eats radioactive shrimp contaminated with cesium-137, you have receptors in your body that recognize that radioactive isotope as potassium, and it is absorbed into the system through the intestines. Usually it goes into your muscles and other organs. And now they have found that they're also finding radioactive cloves. This is coming from Indonesia, and there's now a recall in at least 31 states, many brands. I suggest that you inform yourselves about this. This is one of the many dangers. There's meltdowns, but there's also the day-to-day danger, the decimation of the environment, of the marine environment, even if we don't have a meltdown. And again, I want to really thank your organization for having this discussion and for offering to send out an alert, and your willingness to work with the Mothers for Peace, a magnificent organization that you should really be helping in any way you can, because they've been carrying the banner and doing most of the really heavy lifting when it comes to our struggle to shut these very, very dangerous reactors. So,
Right. So,
and
sorry.
I'm leave pretty soon, but I just wanted to personally thank you before I leave.
And we wanted something tangible to come out of this. So you're partnering up with the Mothers for Peace and focusing on the one thing about the mothers is it's not, an abstract debating society. The mothers are really about accomplishing this goal, which we won in 2018, and now has been, reneged upon in a very, very dangerous and expensive way. The number one reason the California electric rates are so high is because of Diablo Canyon. Now, you in the Bay Area, you're paying PG&E. I'm a DWP customer, and they're making me pay for Diablo Canyon, which is ridiculous. But it's a total money loser, and it's a scam. And nuclear or not, it needs to shut. And the group that's been most focused on doing that is the mothers. So we hope you have a strong and fruitful partnership.
And I also
Yes.
thank you all. This is Linda speaking. I really want to thank you, and I want to let you know that Tuesday, we're having a strategy meeting for 2 hours Tuesday morning with our advisors and our attorneys to try to figure out what to do next. And I want to be able to tell them that we're that I talked to you today, and then to come back to you if you would be so kind for us to propose to you something that the Green Party can do. We'll put it all together for you. As you said, Phoebe, we'll put in links. We'll give you an outline. If you could help us, we would be extraordinarily grateful to you. This is exactly what we need.
And you have to remember one thing, and add this in, please, to all your discussions. We have a history in California of successfully shutting nuclear power plants.
That's right.
The two reactors at San Onofre were booming along, and various things intervened. Had it not been for the anti-nuclear movement, San Onofre would still be running. The same with two reactors there, big ones between LA and San Diego. We shut them. We also shut the reactor at Rancho Seco. In 1989, there was a referendum based on cost mostly. And the voters of Sacramento shut Rancho Seco reactor. And we also had the one at, what's the one that was directly on the earthquake fault in Northern California? It's like a joke. What was it called?
Oh, I know the name of it.
Well, anyway, what's
Oh,
it?
it
Yeah,
was
Humboldt. The Humboldt reactor was, discovered to be like if there was an earthquake, the earth would have opened up and the thing would have fallen in. I mean, it was right on and we shut that one. So we have shut at least 4 reactors in California. These are the last 2. And we had a booming solar industry. Every number indicates that if Diablo shut, our rates would go way, 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 way down, and there will be tens of thousands of jobs created. And remember one thing, no windmill ever killed a fish, but Diablo Canyon kills billions of them, and never forget it. Okay, someone had a hand. Justin.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. A lot of the particulars of this are all new to me, but I'm really enjoying learning about it and hope we can do something to help. Um, kind of just been brainstorming to myself, how do we push this forward? How do we raise more public awareness? And, I work as a landscape architect in the Bay Area, but so my brain goes towards, you know, is there a future vision? I know there have been some, a committee or a panel that's been, doing visioning studies about what the space could be after the plant is closed, but maybe that was years ago. But it doesn't necessarily produce, pretty graphics that might appeal to people more in a more immediate way. And, it seems like a great project for like the Cal Poly landscape architecture studio to take on as just, I know it's an academic project, but you get a dozen or 20 students making graphics, and suddenly you've got a wealth of things you can put out in social media and get people thinking about, what this space could be. It's a positive way to also add to all of the economic arguments and the safety arguments. And
great idea, Justin. And um, I want to say that Diablo Canyon has 12,000 acres of beautiful land surrounding it. And it's going to be turned back to the Chumash people after Diablo closes down. But the repurposing of the 720 acres that contain the power plant, et cetera, that has been part of the visioning process for students at Cal Poly on several occasions, but now is a good time to bring that back up. I really appreciate that suggestion. I'm going to take note of it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Remember, 720 acres is 80 acres more than a square mile. So
That's
you're
right.
talking about a very large, piece of property there.
I'm
And
also curious how many homes are within 10 or 20 miles or whatever might be the most dangerous, zone around the plant if it should fail. And do those people know what kind of risk they're facing? It kind of reminds me of people living near Sacramento who live behind levees in a floodplain, but until we get that 500-year storm or a levee breaks, it's kind of like it's not even a risk. You probably don't think about it on a daily basis. But at least the people in Sacramento probably pay flood insurance, so they kind of know they're paying for something. But, people who live around the power plant, I don't even know they realize what risk there is. And if they did, maybe they would probably sign a petition. Is there some kind of thing like that just to help push this forward?
there is
Uh,
no insurance. Diablo Canyon is like every other atomic reactor in the United States, is completely uninsured. As of the Price-Anderson Act, a federal law as of 1957. You cannot get insurance against a radioactive fallout from a nuclear power plant. And the
And
prevailing winds at Diablo are from west to east, from the ocean, and then north to south, down to LA.
so
So there
San
you go.
Luis Obispo, sorry, Sluggo.
Now go.
San Luis Obispo is just 12 miles from from the plant. And Linda Seeley is living much closer to the plant personally at Avila Beach. But there's a campus, there's a school at San Luis Obispo where students I talked to years ago, very few of the students even knew that they were living 12 miles from a nuclear power plant that might possibly become a Fukushima.
There are 27,000 students at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. There are also 10,000 students at Cuesta College, the community college here. I would venture to say that at least 90% of them do not know there's a nuclear plant here. The people who live here, the population of San Luis Obispo County has increased tremendously over the past 40 years. Everyone long time ago knew that Diablo was here, but now people are unaware of it. There are so many people who have migrated in from Southern California to San Luis Obispo. They're completely unaware of it. And this has an enormous, the number one industry here is the tourist industry. And tourists know nothing about Diablo Canyon. And every time I go into San Luis Obispo, I make it a point when I go downtown to stop at the Chamber of Commerce office and say, do you have any information about Diablo Canyon? And they don't. They have zero info for tourists about Diablo Canyon. There is no information about evacuation. Evacuation would be absolutely impossible because there's only one road, Highway 101, that goes out of our county, north and south. We have very few east-west roads, and they're mostly dirt. So we're pretty captive here. And God forbid there should be an earthquake that destroys Highway 101, which it would, because then for sure nobody would be going anywhere.
Well, I think the basic evacuation plan at Diablo Canyon is swim to Hawaii.
Really.
So anyone else? Just remember, this is doable. This is winnable. When you have all the numbers on your side, it's a matter of time. And all the numbers at Diablo Canyon are on our side. There's not a prayer, not a shred of any economic reason to continue to operate those reactors. So, and you can make the strong case that California's electric rates, I mean, they put in over $10 billion in subsidies to keep Diablo open. The only thing that makes sense politically is that Newsom has to be getting a commission here.
Something.
So we hope you all help with this. And, there have been more protesters arrested at Diablo Canyon than at any other nuclear power reactor site in the United States. More than 10,000, including Jackson Browne and some other, rock and roll celebrities. Pamela. Pamela, did you want to say something? You hadn't raised a hand?
Okay. Am I talking now? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I was thinking about the sea otters, and I think when I was down that way, that the plant was not that far away from where the sea otters are very famous, and if you got people to know about sea otters being killed through this possible eruption or whatever, I think they get a lot of people on the side to shut it down. Just a thought.
Good thought. Thank you, Pamela.
Welcome.
Well, one of the first groups that came in the fight was born at Diablo is the Abalone Alliance, and it was so named because the plant actually killed the entire abalone population in Avila Bay there before it opened. They put in pipes that had chemical residue that wiped out a very substantial abalone population.
Right. Diablo Cove was the epicenter of the black abalone population in North America. I don't even know if black abalone live anywhere else, but they're eradicated from Diablo Cove. There are some black abalone in other places, but Diablo Cove is a large cove, and it was like the nursery for black abalone. It's sad.
Beyond. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Phoebe?
I just want to thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, informing us, and inspiring us to take action. It's so important. I'm sorry there aren't more of us here tonight, and I don't know what to do about that, whether people don't want to know, they've got too much else on their plates or whatever, but we got to break through to people. We got to get through to them, and especially since, like you said, it is solvable, it is winnable, and it's we letting it develop into a Fukushima level disaster is not an option. It would harm not only all of California but the whole U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, Fukushima is still spewing into the jet stream and into the Pacific Ocean. And so if Diablo Canyon blew, it would the winds would go east and the whole country would be affected.
Oh,
Yeah, it's absolutely true. If you want, there are two series on cable. One's on Netflix about Chernobyl. One's on HBO about Fukushima, and they're both absolutely terrifying.
yeah.
And Fukushima, the Japanese got extremely lucky because Tokyo is about as far from Fukushima as LA is from Diablo.
Mhm.
And there's no doubt that if Diablo, God forbid, blew up, it would eventually cross the continental United States, but it will first go to Los Angeles, which is south, which is southeast, and the prevailing winds. As someone who's ridden many, many miles on the coastal bike path there, the wind is always from the north, and yeah, and that would be just that the radioactive cloud would go straight into Los Angeles. Absolutely no doubt about it. And can you imagine the cost, the human, ecological, and financial cost of turning Los Angeles into a radioactive wasteland? It's inconceivable, but it could happen. They dodged the bullet in Tokyo because the prevailing winds were out to sea at Tokyo at Fukushima. But the prime minister of Japan, Nato Kan, actually started drawing up plans to try and evacuate Tokyo, a mere 15 million people. LA County is about 11. LA County has more people in it than New Jersey. So there we including me and my family. So that's a little why I'm so focused on it. But
So
there you
Harvey,
go.
my son lives in LA. if Diablo Canyon blows, where are you driving? Where are you going?
Gonna
You
swim
and
to
your
Hawaii.
family.
Swim to Hawaii. That's
What?
it. Got to swim to
Oh,
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
There's nowhere you can go.
Okay.
There's nowhere to go.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely nowhere to go.
Go to the moon.
Uh-huh.
Right. So, but this cannon needs to be done. We had it. It was solved in 2018.
Oh, frustrating.
And we do have people, Mark Jacobson, um, Turn, many other people, the California Solar Energy Institute, Ken Cook's organization, Environmental Working Group. There's plenty of numbers out there. We don't have to make any kind of altruistic argument. You don't even really have to argue safety. The numbers are totally on our side.